I hadn't planned to stay long. It was supposed to be a short visit, just a few days at most. My aunt had invited me after months of messaging back and forth, and with life feeling heavier than usual, I finally gave in. A change of scenery sounded like the kind of escape I didn't know I needed. I packed lightly, mostly out of habit, and caught the evening bus to her quiet little town nestled between amber fields and dusty winding roads. I remembered it from childhood visits, calm, slow, always smelling of something baking or freshly laundered linen. When I arrived, she hugged me tighter than expected. Her eyes lingered on mine like she was trying to read between my words, sensing things I hadn't said. "You've lost weight," she mumbled, brushing her hand against my cheek as if that explained everything. I laughed it off. She always said that, no matter what. Inside the house hadn't changed much. The same floral curtains, the same ticking clock in the hallway. Time felt as if it had paused here. What I didn't expect was him. Her son Elias was back from university. It had been years since I'd last seen him. He used to be this lanky teenager who never looked up from his books, always lost in some fantasy world or scribbling in a notebook. But when he walked into the living room that evening, I barely recognized him. He was taller now, broader in the shoulders, with a quiet confidence that made him seem older than he really was. His eyes were the same, though soft, thoughtful, and the color of warm coffee on a cloudy day. "Hey," he said, almost shyly. "Didn't know you were coming." I smiled, suddenly feeling off balance. It was last minute. Aunt Clara had gone into the kitchen, leaving the two of us alone in the amber-lit room, where dust floated lazily in the golden hour light. I fidgeted with the edge of a throw pillow while he leaned against the doorframe, hands in his pockets. Silence stretched between us, not uncomfortable, but strangely alive, like there were things unsaid waiting in the air, just outside our reach. "You look different," he finally said. "Older?" "In a good way." I laughed softly, unsure how to respond. "So do you, except not older, just more yourself." He tilted his head a little, considering that. "Yeah," he said, "I think I've changed. A lot, actually." That night, I slept in the guest room, tucked beneath an old quilt that smelled faintly of lavender and thyme. I stared at the ceiling for hours, listening to the quiet creaks of the house settling into sleep, and thought about how odd it felt to be back in a place that remembered you better than people did. The next day passed in the haze of routine. Aunt Clara baked, fussed, and chatted endlessly about the neighbors and old family stories. I helped her fold laundry on the sun-warmed porch while Elias read quietly in the shade nearby. Occasionally, our eyes would meet just briefly and then slide away again, like they'd touched something they weren't meant to. That evening, as the sun dipped low and shadows stretched long across the backyard, I sat alone on the porch swing. A gentle breeze carried the scent of earth and jasmine. I hadn't realized how lost in thought I'd become until Elias appeared beside me, holding 2 mugs of tea. "Couldn't sleep," he said, handing me one. "Figured you couldn't either." I smiled gratefully, wrapping my hands around the warm ceramic. "You figured right." We sipped in silence for a while, the only sound the soft creak of the swing and the distant chirping of crickets. It felt peaceful, grounded, and then almost too casually, he turned to me and said something I didn't expect. "You know," he began, voice quiet, "when I was younger, I used to think you were magic." I blinked. "What?" "You always seemed so untouchable. Like you belonged in a different world. I'd sit on the stairs and listen to you talk to Mom in the kitchen, and I thought, that's what Grace sounds like." I laughed nervously. "That's a strange thing to say." "Maybe," he admitted, "but it's true. And now you're here again, and it's like..." He trailed off, then looked at me, really looked. "It's like something I've been waiting for without realizing it." The mug in my hands suddenly felt too warm. I didn't know what to say. I opened my mouth, closed it again. The breeze whispered past us, gentle but insistent, like it too wanted to hear how this moment would end, but nothing more was said. Stood up, finished his tea, and gave me the faintest smile before disappearing back into the house, leaving me alone on the swing, heart pounding. Mind spinning, breath caught somewhere between confusion and something dangerously close to curiosity. The next morning, everything stayed there long after the stars came out. It's hard to describe how a single sentence so soft, so seemingly harmless, can shift the ground beneath your feet. Elias's words from the night before echoed faintly in my mind, like an aftertaste I couldn't wash away. It's like something I've been waiting for without realizing it. I kept replaying it, not because I wanted to, but because it just wouldn't let go. At breakfast, we acted like nothing had happened. Aunt Clara served up scrambled eggs, toast, and oversweetened coffee like it was just any other morning. Like her son hadn't looked at me with eyes full of something I didn't quite understand yet. Elias was quiet, polite as always, but he didn't avoid me, and I noticed that. His glances felt more deliberate, held just a second longer. I tried not to read into it, but I felt like I was becoming too aware of everything. After breakfast, I helped Aunt Clara sort through some old storage boxes in the attic. She was in the middle of her annual "I'm finally getting rid of this stuff" phase, but of course, nothing ever left. As we rummaged through yellowing photographs and forgotten trinkets, she kept talking stories from years ago, names I vaguely remembered, people I hadn't thought about in forever. But I wasn't fully listening. I was somewhere else, somewhere. Between the boxes and the memory of the way Elias had looked at me in the porch light, he's grown into a good man, Aunt Clara said out of nowhere, holding up a cracked snow globe. I don't say it often enough, but he really has. I blinked. Elias? She nodded, smiling. Always quiet, but thoughtful. Loyal. The kind of person you can count on, you know? She turned the snow globe upside down, then right again. Watching the glitter fall. He's seen a lot more than people realize. I didn't ask what she meant. Maybe I didn't want to know. That afternoon, Aunt Clara left for a dental appointment in town. She offered to drop me off somewhere, but I declined. I said I wanted to rest, maybe read, enjoy the quiet. She kissed my cheek and told me dinner would be at 6, then left with her usual flurry of keys and perfume and maternal reminders, which meant for the first time since I arrived, I was alone in the house, or so I thought. I was curled up on the couch. Halfway through a book, I wasn't really reading when Elias appeared from the hallway. He looked casual, like he hadn't planned to bump into me either. Though I wasn't sure I believed that. Didn't think you'd still be here, he said, scratching the back of his neck. I could say the same. He gave me a sheepish grin. Guess we're both bad at leaving. There was an awkward pause, the kind that tiptoed between humor and something more serious. I closed my book, pressing my thumb between the pages to hold my place, not that I remember where I was. He sat in an armchair across from me, elbows on knees, fingers interlaced. Can I ask you something? He said after a moment. Sure, I said, even though part of me braced for something I wasn't ready for. Do you ever wonder how people see you? His voice was calm, thoughtful, not flirty or teasing, just curious. I blinked. What do you mean? Like, not who you are to them, but who you are in their eyes. Their idea of you, what you mean to them. I swallowed. Sometimes, I guess. I try not to. It gets messy. He nodded. Yeah, it does. Silence again. But this time, it felt heavier. I used to think you were perfect, he said finally. His voice so soft I almost missed it. When I was younger, like a storm wrapped in calm. You'd visit and it felt like the whole house lit up. I'd wait outside your door just to hear you laugh. I stared at him, unsure whether to feel flattered or uncomfortable. Both, maybe. I was just a kid, he added quickly, and you were like this idea, this distant, beautiful thing. But now that I've grown, I don't know, you don't feel distant anymore. I stood up, suddenly needing distance that matched my confusion. I should check the laundry. He didn't stop me. But as I turned, he said something that made me freeze in place. I don't see you the way they do anymore. I turned halfway back, barely managing to keep my voice even. And how do they see me? Like a visitor, someone who passes through. But I don't want you to pass through. The words fell like stones into a still lake. No ripples, just depth. I didn't answer. I didn't know how to answer. I walked out to the laundry room, heart beating like I'd just run miles. My hands trembled as I pulled dry clothes from the machine, folding socks and shirts with more focus than necessary. I needed something, anything, to anchor me. This wasn't supposed to happen. He was younger. He was my cousin, technically. Though the lines in our family tree were more tangled than defined, my mother's niece by marriage. His mother's son from a previous relationship. It didn't change how complicated this felt, but what was more complicated wasn't him. It was me, Dot, because despite the confusion, despite the quiet guilt curling at the edges of my thoughts, I couldn't deny the strange electricity that had settled between us. Not desire, not yet, but something like understanding, recognition, as if someone had finally seen the part of me I'd stopped showing the world. Stayed in the laundry room until I heard his footsteps move away. Only then did I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. When Aunt Clara returned, everything went back to normal. She laughed, complained about her dentist, reheated leftovers. Elias joined us at dinner like nothing had happened. But I couldn't look at him the same because something had happened, and no matter how quietly it arrived, I knew it wouldn't leave just as quietly. The next few days passed like a slow-burning fuse. I couldn't shake the image of the man at the back door, how calm he'd looked, how confidently he had knocked, and how he'd walked away like this was part of a routine. It haunted me, not just because of what it suggested, but because of what it confirmed. Daniel had told the truth. His little mind hadn't invented a dream. He'd witnessed something real, something he wasn't supposed to, and now I had to. I tried to move on, to convince myself it wasn't my business. After all, people are allowed to have lives, secrets, mistakes, but this wasn't just about privacy. This was about a child who understood far more than he should. A child who whispered his truths like they were forbidden. That wasn't normal. That wasn't right. I started noticing small things. A scarf that wasn't hers hanging on the coat rack the next time I visited. Glass of wine left half finished on the windowsill in the guest room. A cologne scent that didn't match the delicate perfume she always wore. She kept asking me to babysit on Friday nights. Always Fridays. Always just a dinner. And always the same careful smile. The more I observed, the more I noticed that her charm had layers. It was controlled, measured. It was the kind of charm you wear like a tailored coat, flawless from the outside, but only if you don't look too closely at the seams. Daniel, on the other hand, had grown quiet. Not the natural quiet of a child retreating into himself, but the kind that comes from knowing too much. The kind of quiet that listens at doors and stops asking questions because the answers are never safe. One night, after his mother had left for dinner, Daniel brought out an old photo album from under the couch. He flipped through the pages without speaking, showing me pictures of birthdays, beach trips, and holidays. I watched him closely, wondering why he had chosen this moment to share pieces of their life with me. He stopped at a picture of him, maybe 4 or 5 years old, sitting in the lap of a man I didn't recognize. The man had a kind smile, a bit of stubble, and his arm wrapped gently around Daniel's tiny frame. "Is that your dad?" I asked softly. Daniel looked at the photo for a long time before nodding. That's him. But not the one who comes. Now, I felt my breath catch. What do you mean? He traced the edge of the photo with one small finger. This one was nice. The one now isn't like him. He only comes when it's really dark. Something about the way he said it made my skin prickle. Like he was talking about a ghost or something worse. I reached over and gently closed the album. Do you remember his name? The one who comes now? Daniel shook his head. Mom says I'm not supposed to ask. There it was again, that silence taught by adults. A child learning to protect grown-up secrets. My heart broke a little in that moment, not just for what I was hearing, but for the loneliness I saw in his eyes. That night, I stayed longer than usual. I sat on the back porch while Daniel slept, staring out at the yard, half hoping the mysterious man would show up again. But the night remained quiet, the shadows undisturbed. Still, the silence didn't feel peaceful. It felt like something waiting. The next day, I found myself scrolling through her social media profiles. Not something I usually did, but curiosity had settled into my bones like a storm that wouldn't pass. Her photos were as perfect as her public life, smiling brunches, family portraits, tasteful living room shots, but something caught my eye. A photo posted 2 months ago, her on a rooftop patio, wine glass in hand, golden hour light making everything look soft and dreamy. In the reflection of the glass railing behind her, there was a man's silhouette just barely visible. Tall, lean, holding a phone to his ear, not smiling. The caption read, "Friday evenings like this remind me I'm still alive." My stomach twisted. Was that him? I couldn't be sure. But everything inside me told me yes. Later that week, I casually asked her about her dating life. I didn't mean to pry, I just wanted to see how she reacted. She smiled. Oh, you know me. I'm too busy for that. Not even someone special? I asked, sipping my tea. Her smile tightened just a fraction. No one serious. It wasn't the lie that struck me. It was how easily it slipped past her lips. Like it had been rehearsed. The next Friday, I almost said no. I almost told her I was unavailable, that I had plans. But something pulled me back. A sense that the truth was close, too close to walk away from now. She left at 7:15, wore the same sparkly top, told me she'd be back by 11. Daniel was quieter than usual that night. He didn't ask for cartoons. He didn't want a bedtime story. He just sat by the window, looking out at the dark yard with wide, thoughtful eyes. Do you think the moon sees everything? He asked. I paused, caught off guard. Maybe why? He shrugged. Because I think it knows secrets. I think it sees the things we pretend didn't happen. I had no words. After he was asleep, I returned to the living room. I sat in silence, listening. The clock ticked past 9 p.m., then footsteps. Soft, careful, not from the front door. From the back, I moved quietly, heart pounding. This time, I didn't just stay at the window. I opened the back door slowly. There he was, standing a few steps back. Same man, same coat, same calm eyes. He looked surprised to see me. I think you have the wrong house, I said, voice steady despite the cold fear in my chest. He didn't speak right away. Then he smiled, faint, almost polite. She knows I come. Who are you? I'm someone who is supposed to be forgotten, he replied, but she never could, and now neither can you. He turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows before I could say another word. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it, heart racing. Whatever story she had been telling, it was only half of the truth, and now I was in it too. That night, I didn't open the note. I tucked it into my journal, between pages scribbled with half-finished thoughts and things I was too afraid to say out loud. I needed space. Not distance from Elias, but from my own confusion. I had always thought of myself as someone with boundaries, someone who understood lines, especially in family. But what happens when those lines are blurry? When the heart doesn't follow maps? I slept lightly, dreams folding in on themselves, images of the attic window, golden sunsets, and Elias's voice echoing faintly. When I woke, the note was the first thing I reached for before coffee, before brushing my hair, before facing the world. It was written in pen, the kind of ink that smudges when touched too soon. His handwriting was neat but hesitant, like he had paused after every sentence to second-guess himself. I don't know when I started seeing you differently. Maybe it's always been there, quiet and buried, waiting for the moment I was brave. Enough to notice. Maybe I didn't want to notice. But now I have, and I can't unsee it. You don't owe me anything. Not an answer, not even your time. I just wanted you to know that there's someone in this house who sees you not as a visitor, not as a memory from summers past, but as a possibility. Maybe that's selfish, but maybe it's also honest. I read it twice, then again. Each time, the words settled deeper. He hadn't asked for anything, not a kiss, not a confession, just to be heard. And somehow, that made it all the more powerful. There was a quiet kind of bravery in his note, the kind that didn't beg but hoped. I went downstairs and found Aunt Clara outside pruning the rose bushes, humming a song she probably learned decades ago. When she looked up, she squinted at me and said, "You look like someone who's carrying too many thoughts." I smiled faintly. "I think I am." "Be careful," she warned gently, "about which ones you carry and which ones you bury." I didn't ask how much she knew. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Elias wasn't home that day. I didn't ask where he'd gone, but a strange ache settled into my chest. I spent the afternoon reading on the porch, letting the sun soak into my skin as if it could burn away the questions I wasn't brave enough to ask myself. And then, just after 6, he returned. He didn't look for me. Didn't try to make a moment out of it. He went straight inside, nodded to Aunt Clara, helped bring in groceries like any other day. That subtle respect he always carried, giving me space, letting me choose the pace, somehow made the pull even stronger. That night after dinner, when Aunt Clara excused herself early to rest, I found him alone in the living room, sitting on the edge of the couch with a book in his lap. He clearly wasn't reading. "Can we talk?" I asked. He looked up slowly. "Of course." I sat beside him, not close, but not far. I read it, the note. I figured. "You meant every word?" He nodded. "Even the scary ones?" I laughed softly, but there was no humor in it, just understanding. I wasn't expecting any of this. I wasn't either. There was a beat of silence. Then he said, "But I'm glad it happened." And just like that, something softened in me. "I don't know where this leads," I admitted. "It's not simple. It might never be." "I'm not asking for simple," he said. "I'm asking for honest." So I was honest. I felt something that night. I've been feeling it since. And I hate how unsure I am about what it means. He nodded. "But you feel it." "I do." He didn't smile. He just looked at me deeply, as if memorizing that sentence. Then, slowly, carefully, he reached for my hand, not grabbing, not assuming, just placing his beside mine, letting me decide, and I did. I turned my palm over and closed my fingers around his dot. The moment stretched, wrapped around us like a quiet thread. We didn't kiss. We didn't make any grand confessions. But it was enough. The kind of enough that lives in quiet rooms, behind attic doors, under the hush of ceiling fans, and between the folds of laundry left half done. Days passed. My visit came closer to its end, but something had shifted so deeply that even packing felt different. Aunt Clara watched me with eyes that saw more than she said. She hugged me longer than usual the morning I left. I don't think this will be your last visit, she said in my ear. I don't think so either, I replied. Elias helped load my bag into the car. We didn't say much. We didn't need to. But as I stood by the passenger side, hesitating before opening the door, he touched my shoulder gently. I meant what I said. He told me again. And I'm starting to believe you, I whispered. He leaned in, not to kiss me, but to press his forehead to mine for a heartbeat, then stepped back. I drove away with a full heart and a spinning mind. I didn't know what this would become. I didn't know how the outside world would see it, or if they ever needed to. All I knew was that I came here expecting a break from the world, but I found something else, thought a possibility, a choice, and maybe, just maybe, something that was waiting for both of us all along.